Welcome to Keep It Local. My name is Ryan Welton with Local Media Association, and today I am joined by John M. Humenik, the Chief Strategy and Operations Officer for Local Media Association. Previously, John led the AI Community Journalism Lab program and the FIMS Lab for LMA. I'm also joined by Lynn Walsh, the Assistant Director of Trusting News. And Lynn, I've got to tell you, back in my previous life as Director of Digital Content with Griffin Media, I had the chance and honor to participate in some Trusting News sessions with Joy Mayer. They were fantastic. I'm absolutely an admirer of what Trusting News does. And today we are here to discuss AI and a recent survey that was conducted between LMA and Trusting News called How Should Newsrooms Use AI? Led to a bunch of insights, both in terms of newsrooms and news consumers. But to start, John, Lynn, how about you introduce yourselves and tell us about the inspiration for this survey?
Hey, Brian, thank you so much for the opportunity to be on the program with you and to be here with Lynn Walsh, who we think so highly of. It was a terrific partnership for us and Trusting News to work with, the opportunity to survey readers from across the country, from the members that were in the AI lab, to understand, truly understand what readers' perceptions of AI and news, were, and what we can learn from that. And the reason to talk about, like, how did we start this? Well, we started it because we wanted to make sure that community outreach was an essential part of the experiment process of the lab, but also that we would take those insights and benefit from them, not only in building the experiments, but also in the outreach that would happen afterward. And in doing that, Trusting News and Lynn have been exceptional partners with us to help guide us through that process, but also help us build that survey. So we're thrilled to be able to be a part of this process together.
Thanks, John. And hi, everyone. Lynn Walsh, the Assistant Director at Trusting News. If you are unfamiliar with Trusting News, we are a 501c3 based in the US. Our goal and what we are trying to achieve is to have as many people as possible consume and have access to accurate, responsible, ethical information. And as the information ecosystem changes, there are more and more people providing information. But right now, that really is coming mostly from newsrooms and journalists still. And so we want to make sure that communities trust them so they are receiving this information. And so we work through helping newsrooms be transparent and engage and listen to their audience. Those are the two main ways we know that can help build trust. And so we do that with newsrooms through coaching, training, and experimentations. And so actually, what got us started in Trusting News and me personally in this work is, for a couple years now, people have been talking about how can journalists use AI, and there are lots of good reasons and why people and journalists would use AI. But the question was, do we disclose how far is too far? How much is too much, right? And so at Trusting News, we kind of went to our principles of building trust and said, well, let's ask our audience. Let's see what they think. And so this work here that we're going to share with LMA is building on a previous survey that we had done with very similar questions, but also some different questions where we're really trying to get at the heart of what do users expect when newsrooms use AI? What's their comfort level? And how can we help build trust with that use of AI so that they still trust the content that it is assisted with?
So, as part of the survey, who did you ask exactly? Were these people who were Luddites, neophytes, brand new to technology, or are these people who are like, they're sort of already embedded in what AI is all about?
Well, let me start, and then Lynn can give you some more detail. But what we did was the members of the AI lab invited the readers in their markets to participate in an 18-question survey that Trusting News helped us put together. And they did it through articles, they did it through editor columns, they did it through social media posts. But basically, they set it out to say, we invite you to help give us information about how you perceive AI in news. And then what came in was amazing with the amount of people's interactions. And Lynn, why don't you tell us? I mean, that's been really important.
Yeah, absolutely. So we had just over 1,400 responses. And so I want to just reinforce something that John said. These are actual news consumers. So this is what makes, I think, this data really special. And I think for newsrooms, worth paying attention to and acting on. This is not just getting a sampling of people in your community. This is your actual news consumer seeing an ask from you to answer questions. And so I want to just make sure to kind of point that out because that does it different than maybe some other data from surveys. And so just a little bit about who responded. Again, we had just over 1,400. 50% of those people were 65 or older. So this group did tend to be a little bit older. They were mostly white. And when we look at specifically your question about like, what's their relationship with technology and news? The one thing that's really important here is these people that responded, they are heavy news consumers. We had almost 50% of people saying that they are reading, watching, or listening to local news multiple times a day. Basically, we had 40% of people said that they used a chatbot. 50% have said that they've used AI features and search engines. So I kind of categorize their AI use. They're aware of it. They're using it. I don't know that I would say these are heavy AI users at all.
Well, as news consumers, at the end of the day, it's all about trust and how they feel about the content that they're looking at. What were some basic takeaways from the survey as to what they think about newsrooms that use AI? What level of transparency was required? Does it automatically eliminate newsrooms that use AI from the conversation?
I would say, Ryan, that's a great question because what it really is about is the conversations that newsrooms are having about this emerging technology, about the perceptions of their audiences, and about can it really create efficiencies that will allow them to have more time to cover local news? And the other part that I think was really essential was for them to understand the workflows that they have in their news operations and to determine is there an AI tool that would improve a workflow? And what we found, which was really terrific, what we found was that they had a really great opportunity to do two things. One, have a terrific conversation inside their news operations, and two, to really understand their workflows and understand how they went about their day to day and what opportunities AI tools could give them. So that was the part where I think has been, okay, let's start by understanding where the benefits are, but let's really have an understanding that this is going to be a relationship we have with the technology, but also with the community and the audiences that they serve. So my takeaway on that one was the fact that this is a relationship between the news operations and their audiences.
There are really good use cases for AI in the journalistic process. And I think there are reasons we should be experimenting with it. There are reasons to try out this technology from the standpoint of maybe efficiency and avoiding duplication, right? And our data and research reinforced that um, the public is okay with some uses. Checking spelling and grammar, that's an example of something they're more comfortable with. They're more comfortable with language translation. Now, we see, though, that they are less comfortable and very ugly when it comes to AI just wholly creating content, right? And so the goal of this data and really why it's so useful is it can help, as John said, guide newsrooms through the decision process of how much should we lean into this? And if we lean in too much, the concern is, are we going to lose that trust of our audience? And then kind of just some general notes about comfort level of AI, I would say, from this group and its use in news. We really did find that many are still unsure about how they feel about um, journalists and newsrooms using AI. And what's interesting is we found that actually more people are uncomfortable than comfortable with AI being used in news, even if it is guided and verified before publication. But they said that more people were likely to say that they would support its use if it could lead to more content, again, with that responsible ethical use, and if it would be something that would allow to free up journalists to do more in-depth reporting. So people are cautiously open to it, I would say. One thing that was interesting with this data in particular is we had almost a third of the people responded And when we asked this question in different ways, who said they were unsure about how they felt about AI use in news. And I point that out because I think that's a real opportunity for newsrooms and for journalists to be open and explore this use of the technology with their community and potentially build more trust and bring them to that comfort level, right? Increase that comfort level and be comfortable instead of being uncomfortable and losing trust.
Helping the audience understand that in exchange, the quid pro quo for the newsroom using AI is that we get to cover so much more in the community is something that's imperative on the newsroom to communicate over and over and over. What are some other ways that you learned from the survey or in your training with newsrooms that newsrooms can help audiences understand AI? What are some of the other opportunities?
Yeah, something that we're focusing on at Trusting News is first and foremost, we know that people expect newsrooms to have an ethics policy around their use of AI, or at least mention how they are still going to be ethical with the use of this technology. Whether that is a standalone policy about your approach to AI, and again, at Trusting News, we talk about this. It does not have to be a formal policy. Maybe it's just a story you write about your approach to using AI. And you talk about how you're going to use it, how you're not going to use it, what you can promise users. But first and foremost, that is one thing I definitely recommend and that users expect. That came out of this survey and other research. So have that ethics policy or ethics guidelines or guardrails. The other thing is anytime you are using, think about how should we disclose this? How should we talk about our audience? So one way that journalists can educate their audience is by talking about their own use and how they're using it in newsroom workflows. Now, something we're currently experimenting with at Trusting News is what if journalists actually share AI literacy content with their communities? What what will people think about that? It's something that in previous surveys we have found that people say that they want. And so we are actually now testing that theory and helping newsrooms. We're creating content that talks about what AI is, what is generative AI, what is an LLM, what is a hallucination, how's it good, how's it bad, its limitations. We're going to have newsrooms share that. And again, this is not how newsrooms are using AI. This is AI literacy education in general. And we're going to see how consumers respond to that. We think kind of this combination of approaches is one that can help build trust because people are confused, fearful, and scared of AI. And so if we can help guide them through our use of it, but also help them better understand it, we think that that can help build trust, but we're going to test it out.
Right, and I'll just add one other piece about this. And Lynn mentioned this was about experimenting with AI, and that's what the AI Community Journalism Lab was all about. It was about taking a kind of what if we and how might we approach to this technology, and that's been a terrific part about this because we were able to also in this survey ask the readers and audiences and news consumers the types of experiments they would feel okay about newsrooms doing and getting a sense of their comfort level about certain types of maybe we might say behind the scenes type activities, whether it and Lynn mentioned transcription or helping to improve with grammar or copy editing. These were elements that we asked the news consumers about. And that's why this survey is so helpful to this conversation in turn inside the newsrooms, but also in turn in the conversations they'll have in the communities with their audiences.
Remember when we first started having conversations about AI at Griffin News, one of the things that our vice president of IT said, you got to have a human in the loop, sort of a phraseology. What did you learn from the survey about the importance of human involvement when newsrooms use and experiment with AI? And what should that vernacular be? Should it be human in the loop?
Yes, it absolutely should be in the loop. So now having led multiple surveys that are similar to this, right? And we kind of keep building on it at Trusting News and gathering this data and collecting it from different news consumers. I think this might be our highest percentage when we asked basically, should there be a human involved in the process if AI is involved? In this case, 98.8. So basically 99% of people said it would be important for a human to be involved and to review news content when AI is used. I mean, it doesn't get much clearer than that, I don't think. I mean, maybe if we do another round, is it at 100%? That would be pretty crazy, but we're pretty much there. And yes, I think if you're a newsroom, you're using AI, that human involvement is so, so key from the user perspective. But also, I think if you're trying to use this technology responsibly and you understand its limitations, its hallucinations, things it does well, things it doesn't do well, I would hope that that human review would be an important element of your process and your requirements.
So as you did the survey, were there any surprises along the way? I mean, it might be that you got a 99% return rate on, yeah, humans are important as part of this process. But was there anything that made you say, okay,
I'll add one because I think that this was really cool. When we asked them and we looked at the data, those who use as news consumers, those who use AI, what their feelings were about newsrooms using AI, and those who really don't use AI in their normal lives, how did they feel about newsrooms using AI? And then this was really interesting, wasn't it? As far as did it really surprise? Well, it was surprising the fact that this is the case. If news consumers were currently using AI, they were more likely to have a better feeling about newsrooms using AI. And that gave us a real sense to pause and say, wait a minute, we have a responsibility and a role here to help bring the readers along in the news operations to explain not only through good, transparency, but also have the opportunity to have community outreach to continue this education about this because these news consumers are interested. They want to know. And I think that they're also finding their lives are changing with the use of AI in their lives in normally. So Lynn, that was my feeling. But you same way?
Yeah, I mean, that point in particular, about, you know, does salons use of AI so their likelihood of uh, being comfortable or wanting newsrooms to experiment with AI, right? That's kind of a question we're interested in. And I guess if you think about it, it's maybe not surprising, but I think what it does is that it reinforces exactly, John, what you were saying. The idea that people who are more familiar with AI, use it more, are more willing and being are comfortable with newsrooms engaging with it and experimenting with it themselves. And so I guess when I think about that, I take it away for newsrooms to say, well, what if we educate more people? What if we let people experiment more or we help them experiment more? Can we kind of get more people to be comfortable with our use of it? And I think our data shows that could be true. The other thing that surprised me, and I know this isn't specifically related to AI, but these news consumers are that very, very heavy news consumers. I mean, that was something that I was really surprised by. And I know, John, this has stuck out to me and still does, just how often the people that responded to the survey are engaging with news. I mean, you had, again, 50% of people say that they read, watch, or listen to local news multiple times a day. You had then another third of them saying at least once a day. So, I mean, that's huge percentages. And then another thing that was interesting to me about this group in particular is they are very heavy, not or traditional news consumers. And so social media use, when we asked basically which news sources you use most often, social media actually came in fifth as most used. And that surprised me compared to other news consumers, where when you look at kind of national data, social media kind of is higher on that list. So I think it's something that's unique to these news consumers. And again, reinforces the point of if you want to know how to best serve your community, you really have to find out who they are, what their habits are, and what their thoughts are, because it's going to be different depending on where you live, who you're serving, and what their habits are.
so as part of the survey, we learn a lot about the audience, heavy news consumers, and what their expectations are. John, whether it was your session that you led at LMA Fest, or Lynn, I have to tell you, the session I attended with Trusting News, there were distinct takeaways that I took from both of those sessions. What from this survey would you say are the one or two most urgent to-dos for newsrooms in 2026 relative to AI?
I'll also throw my answer this way. Continue to experiment. Newsrooms need to continue to experiment with AI and the tools. The tools are changing so much. I mean, there are so many capabilities that are coming on. And if newsrooms have this built into their cultures that they're going to accept AI as a learning opportunity first, and then start to look at these efficiencies, I think what they do is they create a conversation that's ongoing in the news operations. They continue to inform the readers and the audiences about what they're doing through terrific transparency. But what actually, I would say what they'll do is they'll be able to go through the use cases and determine which cases are acceptable to their audiences and which ones are acceptable to their own efficiencies and desire for own efficiencies. And in the survey, we spell that out through the results. We go through what are the use cases that the audiences in participating in this survey were most comfortable with and which ones they were least comfortable with. And that is a real good roadmap, Ryan, for news operations to have a conversation about where is the AI landscape, uh, and where are the opportunities for us to continue our own internal learning and our community outreach.
Yeah, and the only way you're going to know that is if you ask your audience. And so this is something like at first, when first have been doing this now for almost 2 years about this whole idea of what does the audience think? How should journalists build trust with their use of AI? And I used to kind of lead with the transparency elements, have an ethics policy, have ethics guardrails, be transparent about your use of them. Yes, definitely do those things. But I really think asking your audience is probably the most important thing you can do because it can help guide all of these other things that are part of the process. How you involve AI in your process. How are you going to be transparent? You can ask your audience questions like this to help give you the answers and guidance and set up those guardrails and set up those expectations as you go along. So I really hope that newsrooms continue to talk to their audience about this. And I think that's the other important part is this technology is going to be ever changing very quickly. The guidance and what expectations around what the community expects is going to change. So we need to continually be kind of checking in. And technology makes it easy to check in. So why not? Why not use this as that opportunity to involve them and get their feedback?
Fluidity of norms around AI. It's going to be ever changing. So newsrooms are going to have to keep up with the headlines. But what if they want to read this survey? John, where can folks find this and read this and digest it?
Yeah, Ryan, thank you for that. The survey is on localmedia.org. It's on Local Media Association's website. Just to show you, there's a cover here, um, very interesting as far as the information we put out right front on the cover about this survey. But the thing that I want everybody to understand is that it's a survey that's meant to be brought into the news operation, sit down, have a conversation, review it. There's a lot of really great tips in this survey document that we created. There's insights. There's incredible guidance from Lynn about setting up policies, creating transparency, what readers' expectations are about disclosure. We asked this in the survey, and this survey document that we produced is loaded with this insight to be able to have these conversations to say, yes, we think we have an understanding of that. Now, we can test certain types of use of AI because we have a better, I would say, a better launching pad of understanding because we can say, yeah, this seems to make sense to us as far as what the expectations are. To Lynn's excellent point, is that really you have to understand expectations, but you also have to continue to experiment, which means that's going to have a conversation in every step of the way. And in doing these experiments in the AI lab, we talked not only about what we were trying to solve as far as a workflow issue or create an efficiency, but we also were trying to have conversations with the readers and with the community about, so if we did this thing, what would matter? Would this be better if we created more audio for you? Would it be better if we were able to get more video to you? If would it be better? And these are conversations that will continue after this survey, because now these news operations and everybody who reads this report will have access to some really, really great insights. And we're just so thrilled to be able to do the survey. We're thrilled to be able to have spent the opportunity with Trusting News to really go through and gather the insights, and those who kept this as a possibility for us. I mean, this was not an easy process, but it was a terrific process because it involves so many different pieces of conversation.
Well, John, I will tell you, you and I worked on the edits to this report together. I loved it. I thought it was fascinating. I do work on my own and I use a lot of AI, so it was very, very important to me. And Lynn, starting with the audience is so paramount. Are there plans, Trusting News plans to maybe follow up on this survey down the road?
So yes, we have on our website actually like a version of the survey that was done with LMA. So it's not the exact survey, but it's a survey that this LMA survey was built on. So that is on our website. It's in our AI Trust Kit. If you Google Trusting News AI Trust Kit, it pops up. Um, any newsroom, any freelancer, any creator, and you can go and you can make a copy of this and you can do this yourself. So our first goal was make this easy to duplicate, and we feel like we've done that. Equal form, very, very easy for anyone to implement. Um, we would love to keep checking in and helping newsrooms continually ask these types of questions. And so, the Trusting News, what that looks like, we will see. We do not have any kind of formal plans with a big survey currently, but we want to keep doing this. We think it's important because the technology will keep changing. What we are focused on right now is that experimentation around AI literacy and seeing if newsrooms give people information about how AI works, does that build trust? Is that helpful to them? So there will be some more to come on that in probably June of next year. So we're just midway through that experimentation. But for any newsroom out there, use that survey. If you get responses, get results, you want help analyzing, you want any of that, reach out to us because we'd love to see it and share what you learned.
And Ryan, I'll just add one other piece to this. The survey also taught us that the readers and the audiences are interested. I mean, this is a topic they're interested in. And their comments about not sure, in some cases, really give us the opportunity to do what Lynn's saying, is to continue to survey, continue to have outreach opportunities. And we are so thankful to the Welton Family Foundation that supported the AI Community Journalism Lab and this survey, because it's interest that comes not only from local communities, but from all that are interested in seeing local medias do successful things. And in this case, education around AI, use of AI, and really putting in place those guardrails that we've talked about, and understanding why humans need to be involved in AI. I mean, it's essential that we have this conversation together, and it's essential that we all succeed together. So we're so happy with the groups that worked on this in the lab. We're thrilled about the opportunity to have Trusting News be a partner in this conversation with us, and also to be able to provide this document to the industry so that they, in newsrooms, they can take this opportunity to have this incredible conversation around this emerging technology.
Well, it's always a point of privilege from my perspective in that as the person who gets to hear this podcast first, I always learn something. And the idea of taking our audience along on the journey of educating them about AI, that was a truth bomb today. I needed to hear that. That's big. Is there anything that I failed to ask you? Something that we want to make sure and get out there about the survey that I didn't ask about?
So,
No,
no, I think we covered it all. I mean, we definitely hit on the importance of human involvement and transparency. Um, and I think those are two probably, if you're a newsroom working with AI, have a human involved. People are not very comfortable with it otherwise, and probably not from an ethical standpoint. The best thing to do is not have a human.
and I'll add, Ryan, that in the document, we put the questions in there. So when you download the document from the Local Media Association website, localmedia.org, you find the document, you will see the actual questions that we ask these audiences. So if there's some questions in local newsrooms they want to explore, they're there. They're there in the way that we presented them, and you can then see the results that we received through it. But I want just to underscore again also the point about why this is a continuing conversation. And we're going to learn a lot more. We look forward to continuing the experiments. We look forward to sharing the results of the experiments that are done. But overall, we feel better informed because of this survey. It gives us a really true understanding of, at this moment, what audiences around the country are interested in. And we can tell you that they're interested in how news operations use AI and the transparency around that.
John M. Humenik, Chief Strategy and Operations Officer for Local Media Association, and Lynn Walsh, the Assistant Director of Trusting News. Thank you so much for the conversation about AI. And thank you to the listener and viewer. If you're watching this on YouTube, please like, subscribe, and leave us a comment. Maybe share this link with a colleague. If you're listening to us on podcast, the most important thing you can do is leave a 5-star review so that other journalists, other newsrooms, other news consumers can discover this podcast easier. For John, for Lynn, I'm Ryan, reminding you to keep it local.